Well, the first full week of April was quite eventful. Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we'll discuss week 14 of 2022. Let's get going. In early spring, it's important to take advantage of good weather when it presents itself. Week 14 was a great example of that. Week started off, it was kind of cool, not cold, but kind of cool. We had thunderstorms move through, dropped a lot of rain, which we could use. The rain really helps our raised beds this time of year. We like to get that, that base water in the bottom where we put the wood chips and things. As we move towards the middle of the week, it warmed up quite a bit. Say Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday were really nice. No, I'm sorry, it was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday that were really nice. We were able to get quite a bit done. We'll look over all that in a minute. And then come Friday, the high was 50 degrees on Friday of this week. And Friday night, it got down to 27 degrees. Friday night into Saturday morning, I suppose I should say. So we had to bring all the plants inside, and we'll take a look at the greenhouse. But as the plants are growing this time of year, it becomes much more of a hassle, right? To take everything from the greenhouse, move it all into the office, get all the lights turned back on, because we don't want to run the lights whenever there's no plants in there. So anyway, getting all of that stuff done, it just kind of made me think about how important it is to take advantage of the weather when you can. Since the middle of this week was so warm, one of the things that we had to do was we had to do a little bit of maintenance on our plants. So we'll take a look at those now. We had to do some maintenance on the strawberries, the radishes, and our ground cherries. We're also today going to go ahead and just add a little bit of soil to our tomato plants, and I'll show you that when we do it as well. So let's take a look first at the strawberry plants. So as you can see here, a lot of our strawberry plants have already started to bloom. So I left these here so I could kind of show you. As we mentioned when we put our strawberries in, until June 1st, any of the flowers that come on there, we want to cut those off. So all you do is put my scissors here at the base of the flower, and I just slide them down as far as I can without touching any of the leaf stalks or anything along those lines, and we'll just give it a snip. So as we mentioned, I did go through and thin out our radishes. You can see how closely I've left them. What we do is we'd like to have them roughly an inch apart on these radishes. These are globe radishes that we grow in the spring, and those are, they get, size of a quarter or so. So they don't need to have the same amount of room as, let's say that if you're growing like the white sickle radishes or anything along those lines, they need a little bit more. They also have more green that comes up on them. These globe radishes don't have quite the tops on them. The reason we grow these in the spring and the others in the fall is these globe radishes, they only take about 30 days, so we can get a whole round of globe radishes, and then we'll replace this with turnips. And then we'll have those turnips and the turnip greens for the rest of the summer. And then probably towards the end of August, early September, we'll pull all of our turnips to eat all them, and then we'll put in the larger radishes here for our fall/winter garden. We also had to thin out the ground cherries that we have growing in these containers. With this being my first experience growing ground cherries, I just kind of overplanted them. I put 2 in each little container. The seed company, I've said this before, but we get our seed from a company called Urban Farmer. And with most of our stuff, like our tomatoes and peppers and things, we only put 1 seed because it's just the generation rate is so high on these. You're pretty much just wasting seeds if you put more than 1 in there. I learned my lesson on the ground cherries. Going forward, I'll only use 1 seed of those as well. But this is what they look like before. So what we're going to do, if we just take this single cell here for example, this is the taller plant, the one you can see on your right, the one on my fingers there. that's the one we'll take out, and we'll just use our scissors and go through and we'll just remove it as close to the bottom as possible. It's not really worth risking the other plant next to it, so you don't try to be super exact. You can cut it higher if you need to. Also, as I mentioned with the radishes, it's a much better idea to cut these as opposed to pulling them, just so you don't disturb the root system of the companion in the same cell. All right, and we'll show you again in just a moment the after. So this is the end result. You can see we've just made sure that we have just the single plant in each one. We went through and just cut them off. You can see down there, just cut them off close to the ground. What'll happen is that root system and everything will just die off and sort of compost itself. And we did all that and we didn't have to worry about disturbing the plant. So while we're in the greenhouse, I wanted to kind of give you a real quick overview of what we do with our tomatoes. They all kind of grow at different rates here, so this was a good tomato to show everyone. As you can see here, we have about a little over an inch of space left from the bottom up. When we started this, we started it probably about right here with dirt, and we've allowed the plant to come up, and as the plant grows, we add more and more of the medium to the cell that the tomato is growing in. And as you can see, they're a little fuzzy there at the base of a tomato plant. When you cover that base of that tomato plant through here, right, when you cover that, those little hairs in there, they become roots. So it gives, you're able to, instead of growing from, the seed down, with a tomato plant, you can kind of start with a shallower amount of medium than you would for most plants, and then build the medium up as the plant continues to grow taller, and that gives you a much stronger root system. And then when we put this in the ground, we will also plant it lower in the ground. So when we go into the fruit portion of the year, our tomato plants are going to have a lot more, or a lot healthier root system, I'm sorry, in order to bring up the nutrients they need to make those big, nice, juicy tomatoes. We might as well just do a good once over here while we're in here taking care of the tomatoes and ground cherries. And you can see some of these squash and melons, they're getting relatively big. So what I'm going to end up doing with them is I will rearrange the greenhouse here. Actually, I believe into this week we're going to get another freeze, if you can believe that. It's going to be 70 and 80 through the mid part of the week, with a bunch of thunderstorms for the upcoming week. And then towards the end of the week, again, we're going to end up with some freezing temperatures. So this week is almost exactly a copy of last week. But as you can see, these plants are coming along nicely. I'm going to go through this week, and as you can see, some of our pepper plants back here, those are the very first leaves that come up on the seed when they come out. They're just there to start the photosynthesis process and that sort of stuff. So I'll bring the clippers out and we're going to clean all these up like we did the tomatoes and the ground cherries and that sort of stuff. Leslie's flowers, she's excited to get some of these guys in the ground. These are ones that she's just had to plant recently. Flowers, they come in different stages than what my garden plants do, so I believe she's taking notes and she'd like to do a video on that to sort of show everybody. But that is the greenhouse. Probably the largest project that I was able to get accomplished this week on the homestead was getting the bamboo cut back down the hill. So what we do is, you can see up here where there's like a definitive line where the bamboo started. I think I showed it a few videos ago as well, but we cut down about 15-20 feet or so, just to where the heel levels out down there. And then what we do is we'll allow this to grow all summer. By next spring, the bamboo will be right back to where it started. The advantage that we had this year was that we ended up with a wood chipper, and the wood chipper really cut down on the amount of labor involved. It was way easier just to chip the wood down. We used it to fill in a little area for Leslie wants to make a little picnic area. So we used the wood chips, or the bamboo chips, I'm sorry, to sort of level the area off. From now on, that's the way that we'll be doing this. We also cut bamboo. You can see it way down there at the end. I left it laying We like to let the leaves fall off of it. You know, it'll take, I don't know, 3-4 days for it to dry out. All the leaves will fall off. And then we're going to use that to cut the stakes for our tomatoes, our peppers, and that sort of thing. We'll get those in this week. So next week's vlog, we'll kind of show you where everything is at. I'm getting excited. Everything is sort of falling into place right now. What was once bare bones, you know, it's slowly growing week to week into the project that we call gardening. I'm sure many of you gardeners around the country, especially those that are in our neck of the woods here, 7B and south, it is starting to get that time of year. Unfortunately, we can't quite put in our warm weather vegetables the way that we would want to. But patience, you know, again, if you had them in the ground, you would have probably lost them this last week unless you had a really good system set up to cover them. This next week, it looks like we're getting more of the same. There's a good chance that it could be sub 30 degrees, which is a killer for peppers and tomatoes. I wanted to give everyone an update here on what we call the big garden. It's a pretty good size, you can see. I think it's, we measured it out, it's a little over 40 feet. We have the 6 rows in there. We had to terrace it, of course, because the slope here is so severe. I don't think quite the video does it justice, but believe me, if you walk this day in and day out, you will understand the severity of the hill. What I've done is I went ahead and we had some aged chicken manure that we aged next to our compost, and I brought up a couple 100 pounds of it, and I put it all through the gardens. You can still see a lot of it. It's been out here in the rain, so a lot of it has sort of soaked in. We were going to go ahead and till this garden this year, do like we did last year, and then in the fall and winter we were going to put raised beds like we did the other gardens. Well, the soil is just not up to it, I don't think. I think it's just going to be an exercise in frustration. We'll get some vegetables, I just don't think we'll get enough. So what we're going to do is, I think this row here, I'm going to add an additional load of chicken manure, and I'll probably put some compost, and I'll till it under, and I'll plant okra there because we love pickled okra. So everything else that comes out of this garden, our purple whole peas, our turnips, that sort of stuff, I'm going to just sacrifice this year, I think, and I'm not going to worry about this garden. And I'm just going to take the time, and I'm going to take the summer to build in our raised beds. We'll start at the very top. My goal is maybe by the end of next month to have that done in raised beds. I haven't decided if I want to. I think what I'm going to end up doing with these raised beds is I'll do, you know, they're 40-foot rows, so I'll probably put in 2 18-foot beds starting at the ends with like a 2-foot gap in the middle, maybe a little wider. I'll probably need to be able to bring the wheelbarrow down the middle so I don't have to, you know, walk so far if I have to add amendments and that sort of thing. So anyway, that's an adjustment that we made. We are going to miss out on a little bit of food, but I think in the end it's going to make for a much better garden going forward. It'll also give us an opportunity to show how we build our raised beds using recycled material. So I'm sure during these uncertain times that could be useful information for a lot of folks. One of the last things I wanted to review here are our potatoes. So our potatoes have finally started to come up. I did want to kind of show, as we said, we like to share our successes and our failures. And one of the things, maybe not a failure, but it is kind of funny. You'll see these little things coming up right here. Last year we grew what they call Israeli artichokes, and they were decent. They're not our favorite. We're not going to replant them. But when I went through to turn the garden, I broke up a couple of these tubers, and each one of those little pieces is coming out with these leaves on them. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait. You can see over here are like that is the potato coming up underneath. So what I'm going to do is, as the potatoes come up, I'm going to let them get established, and before I hoe up the next mounding, you know, to heal the potatoes up, before I go through the next one of those, I'm going to pull out all those little pieces of the Israeli artichokes. I do not want them in here taking out my potatoes. I don't know if they'll take them out, but I guess what I'm trying to say is all the room I want to go for the potatoes, because that's what we kind of budgeted this area for. There's a look at one of the pieces and how it rooted. Look at that. So number one, I'll make sure that I don't grow those anymore. And if I do decide to grow tubers in the future, I'll just make sure that I get them all out of the ground before I decide to plant something else there. Well, thanks again to all you folks that have made it to the end of the video. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like. If you have not, please consider subscribing to the channel. You can hit the little bell icon. YouTube will notify you when we upload new content. Until next time, I hope all you folks take care of yourselves. Peace.